options. How would you like to get started? Choose one.
Morning. Another day, another real world test. It's a crappy day out though, right now, and normally I wouldn't do a real world test on a day like this. But today we're doing a real world test that I've never done before. We're doing a real world test on a TV. To be specific, the Samsung QN90A, one of Samsung's new 2021 lineup Neo QLED TVs. Now this video, I'm gonna go through a bunch of different scenarios that you could potentially use this TV for in a day. And we'll talk about the picture quality, the audio quality, and a couple of the features that I like and don't like about the TV. But first things first. Coffee, check. And the first thing I wanna do is talk about the styling of this TV. And the first thing you notice when looking at the TV, it has really thin bezels. In fact, I measured them because I was curious, and they're about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Now, along with those thin bezels, we have the thinnest TV I've ever used. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that they're now using what they call quantum mini LEDs. Normally with an LED, you have a lens and a package and all this other stuff. They've essentially shrunk all of that down, removed the lens and used like a kind of like a micro layer instead. It basically reduces each of the LED size down to 1/40th, which means that they can also put a lot more LEDs on the panel, which we'll talk about the benefit of that later, but the size is smaller, and so they can actually get the TV to be a lot thinner. And that super thin design comes with a super thin, kind of like a bent piece of metal, very minimalistic, which I like, stand. Now you can either use that included stand, or of course, it has normal mounts on the back that you can use to mount it to the wall. As for ports, we have 4 HDMI ports, only one of which supports 4K 120 frames per second HDR input. So that's perfect for your next gen consoles or your gaming computer. And one of them is eARC capable as well. We also have 2 USB ports, an optical out for audio, an Ethernet port, and a coax port. And lastly, I want to talk about the new remote, because I kind of like it. Way thinner than the old remote. Give you an example. Boom. Old remote, new remote. Now, big part of the reason why it's so thin is the fact that they no longer have batteries in it, not AAAs like we do in the old one. We actually have a solar panel on the back, so this is now going to be exclusively charged by the sun, but also by the lights in your house, apparently. So all you have to do is flip this over and lay it face down, and it should get enough charge just kind of naturally that way from, again, the lights in your house or from just the ambient light coming from outside through your windows. And I even just like the look of it. It has this like brushed metal look to it. It's not metal, but it has that look that I just kind of like. All right, now before we get into the scenarios that I wanna show you guys using the TV, really quick, I think we need to just talk about the software and just basically how you navigate through a Samsung TV like this one. So firstly, it's running Tizen, which is Samsung's own proprietary OS. And essentially you have a home screen, but that screen isn't a page like it is on say like a Roku device. Instead, it's a bar that runs along the bottom of the screen. Now, you can tap down and bring you to what they call their universal guide, which just shows you a bunch of different suggestions for content, but you'll probably not use this, and personally, I just don't find this whole page very useful at all. Instead, that bar is where you're gonna spend a lot of your time when navigating. Now, to the right of that bar is where you have all of your apps. Now, this list can be edited and customized. You just have to push down on the center button on the D-pad of the remote, and that gives you the option to either move them around or remove them. And if you wanna add any apps to this menu, you simply go over to the app section. It'll show you recently used apps. You can click up on those and then just click add to home. Now to the left of those app shortcuts, we have a home button, which just brings you again to that universal guide, they call it, that's beneath this bar, again, that I find not useful. To the left of that, you find something even less useful usually, and that's an ad. And I still haven't figured out how to turn these off. To the left of that, we have ambient mode. It's this concept that I actually like, the fact that this TV, because it is plugged in and in certain modes it can draw very little power, instead of having it be just a big black screen, you might as well use it for something. And so ambient mode allows you to either use it to display photos or bits of information like the weather, the time, have it, cycle through a bunch of different patterns, etc. You can even have this turn on automatically when you walk up to the TV if you have a phone with SmartThings enabled on it, have it time out after a certain amount of hours or leave it on all the time. I just think it's a clever way of utilizing the TV when it's off which in most cases is most of the time. You can also use the SmartThings app on your phone to be able to control a bunch of these things from the device instead of from the actual TV. But for ambient mode, you can use it to take a photo of the TV with the surrounding wall, and it'll try to mimic the wall's design on the TV for ambient mode. So it becomes the background and kind of creates this like see-through effect. Now, I've never tried that in anything terribly complicated. Samsung shows it working on like stone and brick and all sorts of other things. I've only had a drywall wall in my apartments, so it does that just fine, but that's not terribly hard to do. Either way, clever concept. To the left of that, we have multi-view, which is Samsung's way of utilizing two different inputs or two different apps at the same time on your TV. So they have a couple of presets. We have a sports one that allows you to select various sports channels to play at the same time so you can watch multiple games at once. And we have a home workout preset that allows you to take one of their workout apps or YouTube and pair it with, say, a camera on your phone or a webcam if you have one plugged into the TV so that you can kind of watch your own form while you do the workouts. But you can also create your own. You just select whatever view you want for one, tap over and select whatever you want for the other. You can also change the size, make it a picture-in-picture or side-by-side or any combination of the two. Now, you can only do two inputs on this TV, but the more expensive, the 8K models of this TV, you can do up to 4. After that, we have the aforementioned apps section, which is where you can find new apps to download and install on the TV or see the ones that you've recently been using. And to the left of that, we have a universal search. To the left of that, we have our SmartThings dashboard. And if you've connected SmartThings to this TV, you'll have all of the devices on your SmartThings network listed there, as well as being able to add devices through the TV and just kind of control those devices here on this screen instead of on your phone. To the left of that, we have our normal source that we're used to seeing on all TVs, which essentially allows you to choose between the different HDMI ports and USB ports and other sources that you've plugged in. And then lastly, we have settings. Now you can get to your quick settings just by hovering over and then pushing up on the little settings gear here in this home menu bar. And most of the things that you would probably need are in there, but you can also click directly on the settings icon itself to get to all of the settings for the TV. Okay, enough kind of rundown of how the TV works and what it looks like. Let's dive into some scenarios. And this first one is one that I don't think most people would think of when it comes to a TV, but due to the pandemic and other reasons, this is how you can work from home on the TV. Now, firstly, we have DeX built in to the TV like we do with most Samsung TVs, which allows you to kind of use your phone in a more desktop-like UI. The only time I found DeX truly useful is when it came on the Tab S7 built into the tab itself. So you can just go from like a tablet, normal Android to this desktop version, which made it feel a lot more like a computer and a lot more capable. So that was kind of a cool way of using DeX. This kind of stuff, I don't see many people using it because obviously if you're home and you're working from home, you already have your computer probably nearby. If you need it in a pinch, sure, I guess, but I just don't see many people using this. But with that computer, you can also use the TV as a monitor. And you can do this in two ways. You can either do it wirelessly through an app that Samsung has you install on the computer, or you can also use the built-in external wireless display feature that Windows computers have. And then the TV will show up so long as it's on and they're both on the same network. Once you click that, it'll wirelessly project your screen onto the TV. The lag isn't too bad. Playing a game like this might be a problem, but doing your normal work, it works pretty well. Now, the other way you can do this though, which I maybe more recommend, is you can plug in an HDMI cable from your computer to the TV's inputs. Now, when you do this, obviously lag is greatly reduced, but also I found out there's a way you can actually change it so that it becomes an ultra-wide monitor. There's a feature called game mode on the TV, which we'll get to more a bit later. But you can enable this if you have a console or a PC connected in the settings. And when you do, then there's an option to change the aspect ratio from 16:9, which is the normal TV, to 21:9, which is an ultra-wide monitor, or 32:9, which is like a double-wide monitor. Instead of just using this for games, you could use it actually just for your work. Now, the downside of this, of course, is that there are black bars on the top and bottom of the screen whenever you do that. And I don't know about you, but I don't sit that close to my TV, so it does make everything a lot smaller and harder to see. I don't know. Regardless, I just think it's kind of cool that you can do that. Now, another feature built into the TV, like most smart TVs nowadays, is an internet browser. So you could not plug in your computer and just surf the web using the TV itself. It does support Bluetooth mice and Bluetooth keyboards to make all of that a lot easier to do. But I don't recommend doing it. The internet browser on the TV is pretty garbage. It's really slow. It's also just some sort of outdated standard. Even when I try to load, say like Gmail, it will not load the desktop version. It'll only load the mobile version. And then when I tell it, hey, no, force the desktop mode, it goes, okay, and it gives me the old HTML version. That's how outdated the browser is. So it's there, but I wouldn't recommend using it, and maybe just plug your computer in instead. And lastly, for work, in a world where potentially we're doing a lot more video calls even after the pandemic is done, they built in a way for you to do video calls on the TV itself, which I think is pretty clever. Right now though, it's limited to only Google Duo, because that's the only app that's been built for the TV. Now I expect Zoom could make an app for the TV, and then you could install it, as could, Microsoft Teams and whoever else. But at the moment, those don't exist. So you're limited to Google Duo. Also, in order for that to work, you do need a webcam. But you can buy one, stick it on top of the TV and plug it into that USB port, and it'll be recognized and it'll work along with the microphones in the webcam as well. Something that is annoying though, I bought a webcam to test this feature out and it doesn't work. After plugging it in, it makes it clear that only Logitech webcams and specific ones that it lists work with the TV at all. Why that is, I'm not sure, because a USB webcam is a USB webcam, but for whatever reason, it's restricted to Logitech ones. So while Logitech does make great webcams, it's kind of annoying that you're forced to use one. Okay, so the next scenario that also kind of stemmed from pandemic times is their working out from home features. And all these features are contained in their own Samsung Health app that's on the TV. Essentially, scrolling down this page shows you a bunch of workouts that are meant to be done at home from all of their various health app partners. And while I get the concept, and I think there's a lot of people out there that might actually enjoy it, it is pretty limited in the amount of content that they have. And every time you click on one of these, more likely than not, it forces you to then download and sign up for a new app to then use that content. Well, although at this time, at least of making the video, I count about 7 apps that they pull in different workouts from. And then you can also browse them by the type of workouts that they are, not just the apps, the length that they are, etc. One feature they do have here though that is kind of unique and intriguing is a smart trainer feature. And what this does is actually allows you to use that webcam, and the AI that they have built in can make sure that your positions are matching the ones that the trainer is doing. Now this also is very limited. It only works with the Jillian Michaels set of workouts that they have, of which there's not terribly too many of them. But neat concept, and maybe they'll add more content to that in the future. Something else that's just kind of nice in this section here is that you can also see all of your actual Samsung Health data. So your steps, your calories, active time, stress, sleep, all the normal things that you see in Samsung Health on your phone. A lot of that is available here as well. And apparently when you do the videos that I just talked about on the TV, it will count those towards videos that you've done in Samsung Health. I haven't been able to get that to work, however, but that's the idea, and maybe it'll work better in an update. And lastly, you can also set up routines. You can set up 2 different ones, and say you could do one for the morning and then one for the evening if you wanted. But essentially these are just reminders that you can set to different days of the week at those specific times, and then decide what types of content you want it to display when it does remind you. Not something I would personally use, but maybe some of you prefer that kind of structure. Now personally, for me, I'd rather just work out using YouTube workout videos and the webcam in one of those multi-views that I showed you earlier. Also, there is another feature that you can use here, which is cool. If you don't have the webcam, but you have a Samsung smartphone, you can actually use that as the camera to check your form during your workout instead. Again, probably what I would do, but maybe that's just me. Okay, now let's talk about some of the gaming features. features. So firstly, whenever you plug in a PC or a game console, you'll have the option to turn on game mode. And when you do that, you'll get stats on how good the input lag is, the frames per second that you're getting, whether HDR is on, your variable refresh rate is on or not, as well as where you are having sound output to. And beyond that, as I mentioned before, you can change the aspect ratio from 16:9 to 21:9 and then 32:9 to change the aspect ratio in your games. Just keep in mind that will only work for games that support those aspect ratios, obviously. And then besides that, we just have options for turning surround sound on and off, the HDR on and off, and you have Game Motion Plus, which can boost smoothness, reduce blur and juddering, and add other clear motion effects. Now, apparently my Nintendo Switch, which is the only game console I own right now, and my PC didn't trigger those settings to turn on. So it's probably more for game consoles than anything else. And I've seen kind of a mixed bag online. People saying that they love it. A lot of people saying that they don't because it gives that soap opera effect. But I think it's probably a personal preference thing. Either way, playing games on this TV, it looks good. I'm not gonna lie, you start to kind of notice the picture quality, and even the sound quality is not too bad. But I think we should do one more scenario to really test all of that. Let's watch a movie. Yes, it's Lion King. Whatever, I wanted to see how it compared to the original one that I saw when I was a kid. I never saw it. All right, before we get started though, let's pause it and let's talk a little bit about some of the picture quality and sound quality features. So first up, we have a feature called Space Fit Sound. And as the name implies, it actually analyzes your space using a camera and some microphones and the speakers in order to optimize the audio for your particular space. In addition to that, we have Active Voice Amplifier, which essentially takes the midtones in audio whenever it hears a voice and boosts them to allow you to hear people talking better depending on what it is you're watching. And this will also actually adjust based on the sounds that are in your house as well. Like if things start to get loud, there's a vacuum, etc., it will automatically adjust the TV's audio to compete with it. Now besides that, let's talk a little bit more about these mini LEDs. So again, we have new 1/40th of the size LEDs, and this along with making the TV thinner means they can add a lot more to the panel. Now, normally you have a certain number of dimming zones, as they're called, and these are the areas that can be brightened and darkened to show brighter and darker areas of the screen. Well, when you have a lot of them, it means that you can more precisely control what gets lit up and what doesn't. A practical way of seeing this is when you have a bright object against a black background, and you can see this blooming effect as the light from the LEDs bleeds out into the darker areas. Since mini LEDs let them have more granular control, they can reduce this effect and also just increase contrast across the board. Now, OLED, the biggest competing technology to QLED, can do this by turning off pixels to achieve this purer black since there's just no light. The addition of these mini LEDs to QLED is one of the big reasons that they're calling it Neo QLED. Neo as in new and helps differentiate from the regular QLED. But it helps QLED get some of the benefits that people generally choose OLED panels for. Now for color, QLED uses quantum dots. The Q in QLED is for quantum. And without getting too technical, maybe that's for a decoder episode later on. Let me know in the comments if you would want to see that. They use a layer of particles over the LED to produce a pretty large array of colors, Samsung claiming over 1 billion. As far as certifications for all of that color and brightness, the TV does support HDR10 Plus content, and you'll find content in that newer license-free format on Amazon Prime, YouTube, Google Play, etc. But there is a notable lack of support for Dolby Vision. So you won't get shows that come in that format to look quite the same. They'll still look good because the panel's just nice, but they're not gonna be in the Dolby Vision format and look as good. We also have AI upscaling, and I mentioned this in a previous video about how much better that type of upscaling is getting nowadays with the use of AI and all of these different neural networks. It actually does a pretty good job, I found, compared to like the original versions of this, like take 1080p and make it 4K and it looked like garbage. It actually looks pretty good now. And in this new TV, they have a new processor. They put the word Neo in front of it, so we know. And it uses up to 16 neural networks to achieve the AI upscaling per frame, as opposed to the 1 that they used to use. And lastly, for image quality, The TV has a sort of matte, anti-reflective coating that even when I blast my filming light at it, you can see how it keeps it from being super glossy, like it does on some other TVs, which is kind of cool. Now for sound, a notable feature we have is OTS Plus, or Object Sound Tracking Plus. And it uses AI to track what's on the screen, and then using the speakers that are around the screen, it adjusts them to make it sound as if the sound is coming directly from the object as it moves around. And honestly, it works pretty well. Okay, and there you go. Calling it a night. Now, honestly, I like this TV. It's very minimalistic. The thinness of it is honestly really impressive, especially for the size of the TV. It almost feels like it's too thin for how big it is. I think it's all the quantum dots giving it all that color, along with the mini LEDs that can control the brightness in such minute portions on the screen. You have really good contrast and the lack of blooming, as we mentioned. It looks great. I don't know what to say. The one critique I do have is the audio. So when you first turn on the TV and you don't set up all of the intelligent features, the audio just lacks a little bit of punch. And I think some of that comes down to the fact that it is such a thin TV. It's hard to get a good bass sound out of the TV when the frame is just so small. But I did notice that improves quite a bit whenever I let it kind of do all of its AI things, all the intelligent features. I turned all of them on for the image as well as the audio. I think it at least helped. Now, for a TV of this price, I mean, I'm two minds about the audio because I would say you probably should get a sound bar for it. Just if you really wanted to boost that sound quality, that's gonna be the right way to do it. But then you also kind of think, well, for the price, shouldn't it be able to sound that good on its own? I don't know. I would love your guys' opinion though. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this TV. Maybe if some of you own it, please let me know in the comments below what you think of it. Also, let me know what you guys think of me doing a real world test on a TV. It's my first one ever. Always trying to improve the series and do it on different devices, but let me know how you think I can improve the next time for a TV real world test. Always appreciate it. Also, I'll leave a link below to the TV, the best price that I could find for anyone who's curious about it or just wants to learn more. Otherwise, if you like this video, please thumbs up it or share it. It's greatly appreciated. Also, check out the rest of the channel. If you like what you see there, please subscribe and ding the bell next to the word subscribe so you get notified when I do new videos. As always though, regardless, thanks for watching.